the question that I've heard a lot is a variation of, I'm unemployed. What do I do right now? Do I live on my credit cards if I have to? And sometimes people are a little better resourced and they're asking, do I borrow against my 401k or my IRA right now to see me through?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with the credit card question and whether or not I should live on my credit cards. That is going to be dependent on what everyone's situation is. If that's the only thing you can live on right now, and you're not receiving, and for some reason you're not receiving an unemployment check, then you really don't have another option. Then I guess that's what you have to do. You always try to advise people to avoid credit card debt as much as possible. But if you can't do it in situations like these, then it's really your only option. You need to, after it's all said and done, and we can get back into employment after COVID, and that credit card debt has reached the limit to where you don't think you'll be able to pay it back at a reasonable time, then you can look into a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which will allow you to pay back your credit card debt over a period of 5 years. And that's not only your credit card debt. If you have a car loan, you can expand that car loan out for another 5 years. If you were behind on your mortgage, the arrearage you build up in your mortgage, and when you file a bankruptcy, you will be able to pay that arrearage over the next 5 years. That's kind of the benefit of what a Chapter 13 bankruptcy will do for you. So I guess the point is, living on your credit cards is, if it's your only option, then that's kind of what you have to do. And when we get out of this, when you get back into employment, looking into a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and discussing those options with an attorney are what you're going to need to do. With the IRA and the 401k, should I borrow against it, or should I just pull the money directly out of it? Again, that's going to be dependent on what you are comfortable with and what you just basically feel comfortable with. If you go and just pull it out and use that money, then fine. But all that kind of hurts you on the back end because now I have taken money out of my IRA account, and how am I going to be prepared in the future later when I need to retire? If you feel that you need to do that, and then you're going to be able to replace that money at a later time, then maybe go with that option. If you feel confident in borrowing against it, so that if you do default later, they just come and grab the money out of the IRA account, then go with that option. It's definitely a comfortability in what you're comfortable with answer. If you default when you borrow the money on the IRA account, they will just come in and take it. That's kind of, basically just a comfortability question on what you want to do. And Jennifer, what was my next question?
I'd asked if people should live on their credit card debt if they need to, and then would borrowing or taking money out of an IRA or 401k be a solution? I think you said that the issue is, if you take money out, you're going to potentially be aware that down the road you're not going to have money to retire on unless you can replace that money. And not to anticipate your train of thought, but I think you might have also been thinking about the fact that people have to pay penalties on the monies that they draw out.
Sure. Yeah. I definitely missed that. But if you want to borrow it, I think that's probably a good option. But it's definitely, once again, it's just what you're comfortable with.
What do I do if I cannot pay my mortgage? And does the moratorium on foreclosures end when the shelter-in-place orders end? When does it end? And what happens next?
Yeah, I'll take the lead. So if you can't pay your mortgage, I guess I'll start with the moratorium question. I'm pretty sure let everyone else back me up on this. I'm pretty sure the moratorium ends on May 17th. But then again, those foreclosures are only, moratorium only applies to mortgages that are federally backed, which I think we've discussed previously. If you can't pay your mortgage, the first thing you need to do is call your lender and speak with them directly and ask what kind of forbearance programs they have or what kind of assistance they can offer you. The forbearance programs are kind of differ depending on the lender and what your particular circumstances are and what the lender's comfortable with. Some forbearance programs will allow you not to pay during a particular set of time, but at the end of the forbearance period, you're going to owe all that money that wasn't paid. So, and they'll sometimes either ask for it all up front, or you can create a payment plan where you're paying more than your mortgage to be able to catch up the arrearage. Similarly, in a bankruptcy, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, if you get a notice of foreclosure, the way to stop that foreclosure is to file the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Once you file it, it allows you to catch up your arrearage over 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and while you are making direct payments in the meantime. Is there anything else?
I think that's right.
The only thing I might add is that this sometimes can be a little bit tough because when you're to do a Chapter 13, you need to have a regular source of income, and unemployment is not necessarily considered a regular source of income. So if you lost your job and the bank won't cooperate with you, you may need to be in touch with your real estate broker to see if you can sell your house. It's not something you would want to do. And certainly speaking to the bank is the first option, but you shouldn't necessarily relax and be like, oh, I'll just file a Chapter 13, which is what a lot of people think they're going to do at the last moment. And, then it turns out that that's just not a sustainable solution. So you really need to, if you're thinking about that, talk to the bank and then talk to a bankruptcy lawyer in your state.
Absolutely. This is a major asset. This is your roof over your head. If you find yourselves in this kind of situation, it really, really behooves you to take the time to talk to a lawyer to make a plan. I closed on a house 3 weeks ago, and then I was just laid off due to the pandemic. My first payment is due this May, and it is a government-backed loan. Should I go into forbearance, and what happens if I do?
It's definitely going to depend on what they'll offer you. If like everyone else has said, if you can pay. If you can't, you got to call them and figure out what you can do, what forbearance program they will offer you. Sometimes they are offering complete suspension of payments. Sometimes they are offering forbearance agreements where you're paying them back at the end of the forbearance period. Those will generally catch up with you. I don't necessarily recommend those balloon payment forbearance programs. The other option would be to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And we are expecting for those to be a giant influx of Chapter 13 bankruptcies at the end of this period. So probably coming up within the next 60 days, we're going to see a lot more of them. For these people in this situation. If you can't pay it and you're not comfortable with the forbearance program, then I never want to recommend people to not pay their mortgage. But here's what happens is if you don't pay it for 2 to 3 months, they're going to send you a notice of foreclosure. In my state, in Georgia, they'll then run an advertisement in the newspaper for 4 consecutive weeks, and then they'll go to the courthouse steps and they'll auction the property off on the first Tuesday of the following month. All that takes time. All that was 60 days, what I just said. So it's not, I don't I'm not saying to relax on it, but you have time and it's not an emergency at the moment. If it gets to the point where you're not comfortable with the forbearance, or you didn't want to do the forbearance, so they wouldn't offer you forbearance, then the Chapter 13 bankruptcy would be what you would do, and you then pay back that arrearage over the next 60 months. And considering hopefully you get your job back and have steady income, you then pick up those payments directly and start paying your mortgage. I think Bradley had said earlier, Chapter 13s don't work unless you have unless something has changed in your life where you have income coming back in. That's important to make note of. It's not an end-all remedy to your situation. And particularly with if it is a government-backed loan, I think we did say earlier, May 17th, which is coming up, they can't even send you a notice of foreclosure then, so which tells me that they're not going to be able to send a 30-day notice until next week. So it's definitely hard to, consult and advise people on, what's the best situation to do. If you get to a foreclosure, go to a bankruptcy attorney and talk to them about your Chapter 13 options.